it does, we can just bring it to next approval.
All right. All right.
Yep. Everyone to the first Legislative Council of the 2020 to 2021 school year. As you know, I'm going to be your speaker, and then Wing Wong is your parliamentarian for the year. Really excited for what this year has to offer. So we're going to begin with item 1 on the agenda. For everyone, I would recommend pulling up the agenda. It's in your shared drive under Legislative Council. If you go to Legislative Council 2020 to 2021, go under meetings, then go to future, and then goes to 2020-09-08. You can get the agenda. Wing is currently projecting it as well. But we'll begin by calling this meeting to order at 18:08. Moving on to item 2, the land acknowledgement. The SMU acknowledges that McGill University is situated on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe Nations, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples. Moving on to item 3, attendance. When I call your name, please say here, present, or in French if you so choose. If you are a proxy, I don't believe there's any proxies tonight, but if there's a proxy, please state that you are a proxy, who you're proxying for, and please spell your name out for the purpose of the minutes. We'll begin with Councillor Collins, Arts.
Here.
Councillor Karasik, Arts. Also, if I mispronounce your name, please let me know. Half of my purpose is just to say your name, so please let me know. Councillor Smith, Arts. Councillor Williamson, Arts.
Present.
Councillor Latvina, Arts and Science.
Present.
Councillor Mulvaney, Athletics.
Present.
Councillor Lee, Dentistry.
Present.
Councillor Bullhose, Education.
Present.
Councillor Kirksue, Engineering.
Present.
Councillor Reed, Engineering.
Present.
Councillor Bonin, Law.
Present.
Councillor Gunderman, Management.
Present.
Councillor Kuhn, I'm going to mess up this one, so I apologize, Milu. Councillor Kunze Ruland.
Present. You can just say Councillor Kunze in the future.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Wan.
Present.
Councillor Gee.
Present.
Councillor Morgan is absent. Councillor, can you say your name? I don't want to mess it up first. So Fernandez, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Councillor
Yes,
Fernandez.
present.
Councillor Sood.
Present.
Councillor Zhang.
I'm here. It's Zhang.
Zhang, perfect.
Yeah.
Councillor Daryani.
Present, and it's Daryanani.
Damn, all of last year. Okay. Okay. That's going to take
Last year to say it.
That's going to be an adjustment only because I'm used to now mispronouncing your name. I will get it. I'm sorry if it takes me a couple tries, everyone. Councillor Roy.
Here.
Councillor Earl, President, SMU President.
I'm here.
VP University Affairs. VP University Affairs. We'll call on him again. I call on them again. My apologies. VP Student Life.
Here.
VP External.
He's sick.
Sick. Okay. And VP Finance.
Here.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4, approval of the minutes. There are no minutes to be approved. Moving on, item 5, adoption of the agenda. The agenda has been distributed. Are there any corrections or changes to the agenda at this time? Okay, hearing none. Just a note, because this is all going to be online, I'm not typically going to take interventions by simply unmuting, but for when I'm asking for motions and seconders on these, you can simply unmute you and I'll recognize you. Everything else, I'll go through different procedures. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda? All right, thank you very much, Councillor Smith. May I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you very much, Councillor Collins. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the agenda will stand approved. right, moving on to item 6, report of the steering committee. I will be presenting for the steering committee. So the steering committee met today and reviewed the agenda for today's meeting at 12:30 on September 8th, 2020. All were present, to include myself, the speaker, the parliamentarian Wong, President Earl, Speaker on call Lee, and the governance manager. We had no guest speakers. We reviewed all new business items, including the 2 new notice of motions, the 3 notices regarding interim provisions, as well as the motion regarding adoption of the standing rules, motion regarding elections and referenda timeline, and motion regarding legislative council committee allocations. Business arising, there is no business arising for tonight. Steering committee innovations, this is the most important part. So given that this meeting and meetings at the at least immediate future will be conducted through teleconference, we've made a number of changes for the meeting. So first off, for councillors wishing to speak, the speaking list will be used. The speaking list is going to be found in the folder for this specific meeting. You should have edit access with your SSMU email. If you don't, let me know. And then I can adjust it, or Wing can adjust it. For if members of the gallery, I know there's a couple of you, if you wish to participate in question period or debate, you can simply raise your hand. If we don't get to you right away, that's just because we can't see everyone. You can simply message me or Wing in the chat and we can get to you. For voting on incidental or subsidiary motions, so everything that isn't, for example, to call to adjournment, to call for a recess, anything like agenda, anything remaining to amendments or anything else, we're going to be using the polling feature that Zoom offers. This is going to take some time. We haven't used it this often. It's going to take some time, but it's the fastest way we've figured out. For voting on privileged motions, so motions to adjourn, motions to call a recess, etc., we're going to first call it by unanimous consent. If it fails unanimous consent, we will then conduct a Zoom poll. For voting on main motions, we're going to be continuing with Google Forms as is standard. In the folder for the meeting, you should also have a voting direction sheet. In those voting directions, you have access to view to vote in a number of forms for this evening, including the consent vote that we will discuss when we get to that item, as well as all the main forms for each motion. As well, if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, they're always welcome, and you can always email me at speaker@smu.ca. And there will not be a confidential session this evening. Are there any questions on the report of the steering committee? Hearing none, we will move on. Moving on to item 7, announcements. All individuals wishing to make announcements can indicate so on the speaking list. Just give me one moment, counselor, so I can indicate it. And I will recognize you in the order that they are indicated on the speaking list. Yep, we will begin with VP Student Live.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to make an announcement about Activities Night. It's coming up tomorrow from 4 to 8 p.m. We have webinars tomorrow and the following day on Thursday. So please do spread the word. There's just a day left. So it'd be great if you could tell everyone you know. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, VP Student Life. Parliamentarian Wong.
Hi, guys. So I'm the parliamentarian, and one of my responsibilities is to head the nominating committee. Recently, we just uploaded the postings for new J-Board justices. I think we need 3. So if you know anyone who you think is a good fit, you should probably let them know so they can apply. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, parliamentarian. VP University Affairs.
Hello, everyone. So alongside my responsibilities with University Affairs, I also chair the Board Ad Hoc Committee on Naming. So we, with the first listserv that was recently sent out, opened up both nominations for members at large to sit on the committee itself and suggestions for naming. Actually, yeah, in summary, so the committee itself is dedicated to naming SSMU's 2 buildings, the University Center and 3501 Peel. So if you know anyone that'd be interested in either serving on the committee, or if anyone that has ideas, you can direct them to those links. They were in the Yeah, they're in the last listserv. I can also share them. Just email me. Yeah, I mean, naming buildings, it's cool. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, VP University Affairs. I have the last announcement. I'm just going to remind all of you, council is being recorded and live streams, currently being live streamed, and it's also going to be on YouTube. For the time being, our chat is on, so please remain respectful, and as always, remain respectful. And if you are not comfortable being filmed, I'm not sure how the live stream is filming it in terms of if it's going to be doing gallery view. So I can't guarantee everyone will be on anyways, but if that's a concern, feel free to turn your camera off. I more than understand. As well, I'd like to make a note about reports. This is going to this is going to not only be accurate, be necessary for the executives, but for counselors as soon as next council. When you're sharing a report with the parliamentarian, we're going to go over deadlines. First off, always ensure that you're not sharing with the parliamentarian either a Google Doc or a Microsoft Doc. We prefer them in PDF just so that they're easily transferable and they can't be edited. As well, ensure that you've granted the parliamentarian access so that he can make a copy instead of just doing a link to the original report. That's about it. If I have more announcements, I will interject when it's appropriate. Moving on to item 8, question period. We'll begin with Councillor Wan.
Thank you very much, Speaker Hill. So I'd just like to ask for some clarification or some context behind the recent calling and cancellation of the GA to remove Vice President McCool from his position. Thank you.
Yep. So I can speak about this. I can give as much brevity as I can in public session. Though a motion was originally submitted, as time went on, we have found that it was not able to be constitutionally viable. That is, if we had proceeded with the motion that we had originally set forward with, it wouldn't be in line with our constitution, and thus we made steering had recommended that given that there was not a motion that was currently being approved, that was currently not approved at that point, there was no motion at that point validly submitted in the fact that there was no motion, though it was submitted, it was not valid in the fact that it was not approved and could not be approved in order to uphold constitutional integrity.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to take one more. If there's any other individuals with questions, feel free to indicate so on the speaking list. All right. Seeing none, we're going to go on to item 9, committee selection. So thank you to everyone who filled it out. I believe that there's only one person who hadn't filled it out, and they aren't here tonight. So huge thank you. That saved us so much time. I apologize. Committee selection is never an easy process. There's going to be a lot of overlap, and there's ultimately there's so many counselors that want so-and-so positions, and there's only so many seats. We will try your best. There's a couple of you that I'm really sorry you're not going to get your first choice. But so the plan is I've sorted through everyone who submitted. I've written it down. We're going to begin with the ones that are most contentious, so to speak, in the fact that they are being challenged by multiple people for more seats than they have. So what we're going to do is when we reach one that is, so to speak, challenged, I'm going to list off who has applied for their first choice. We're going to base these off of first round selections first, and then it's going to trickle down. And then, so ones that are contentious, we're going to go into a basic, not debate, but you're going to speak for up to 2 minutes on why you think you'd be best suited for the position. And then we're going to hear all of them, and then I'll conduct a poll, and the poll will indicate who ultimately will serve on that committee, and we'll begin with the most contentious committees first, and then we'll proceed. If you put something as your first choice and either don't want to participate in speaking, you can either send me, we can take a recess, or you can send me a written version of why you think you'd be the best fit, so to speak, on the committee, and I can read it out for you, no problem. Alternatively, if you've just decided you don't want to compete for it, or you don't really want that, you don't actually care if you really get it, you can also let me know if you would like to withdraw your name, and then I'll just treat that accordingly. So we're going to begin with equity. It's the one that's most contested for first first ballot. So we have Joe Roy, we have Councillor Roy, Councillor Zhang, Councillor Williamson, and Councillor Kirk-Sue for equity. Are there any other individuals that would like to put equity as their first choice? Or are there any individuals who would put equity as their first choice and no longer wish to speak, longer wish to participate in the debate to get the equity rep?
Can you repeat the names of all the people in?
Yep. Councillor Roy, Councillor Zhang, Councillor Kirk-Sue, and Councillor Williamson for equity. If anyone else is wanting to add equity as their first choice, you can.
I'd like to rescind my nomination for this committee.
All right. Are there any other individuals that would either like to rescind or be added, or their name be added onto equity? Okay, hearing none, we're going to give you each 2 minutes to, it's very off the cuff. No one's judging you on how prepared you are for this. We're going to provide you 2 minutes each to speak on why you'd be best suited to sit on the committee. And we'll begin with Councillor Kirk-Sue. So let me know when you're ready and I'll just time you for 2 minutes and speak on whatever you like.
I can speak right now. Yeah. Hello, my name is Elif and I'm one of the engineering representative to SSMU. I'm also the equity commissioner for the Engineering Undergraduate Society. I would like to sit on the equity committee mostly because I do have experience and I am passionate about the equity and inclusivity issues within McGill. For my experience, I have been an equity commissioner for since May. And I have had experience with the governing committee for the all faculty involvement restriction policy writing throughout the summer, where we dealt about amending the policy to apply to the greater SSMU and McGill context. I also had encounterments with the engineering equity commissioners and the committee itself. I conducted interviews for involvement restriction committee. I've also conducted cases for engineering equity involvement restriction policies. That's a lot of acronyms, sorry. But I've also taken the trainings that were minimum, also had more trainings on the issues of responding to disclosures on campus, equity and intersectionality, violence, active listening, sexual violence, harassment, and consent. I've also given workshops and trainings to engineering departmental faculties, committees, clubs. So overall, I think I would be able to partake in the equity committee for SSMU as well as get the duties done for the tasks. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Kirk-Sue. We'll move on to Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Speaker Hill. I believe that I am best suited for this position as I worked as a floor fellow for over a year, and through that have had 40 hours of equity training. Throughout the process, it also allowed me to work extensively with groups on campus that work to promote and advocate for equality and important equity issues. Similarly, I got to experience OSTAF and the IRP in real time, working on OSTAF for Arts Frosh this last year, and extensively working with the Access Ally program to encourage equity and ways to improve the Frosh experience overall. Similarly, through my floor fellowing, I was able to help create and provide equity training for first years in residence to allow for more opportunities to understand what McGill can do better and how McGill students themselves can advocate for what they need. And that's why I believe I'm suited for this. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Zhang.
Hi, so I'm Joy. I'm one of the 3 science reps. I don't have too much equity experience as much as y'all other 2 do, but I really do want to be involved in equity just because of what I've seen the year that I was at McGill. So I did Frosh lead this year, and I did go through that kind of equity training as well as the Access Ally equity training. So it just brings to light some of the issues that can be involved with event planning or any kind of large scale event at this institution. So that's just something I would really like to be involved with. I've been equity trained by the Science Undergraduate Society a couple times in the past. So for this reason, I would just like to be on equity and kind of just bring what I have and mostly just learn a little bit more of what I can do equity-wise for SMU and for McGill.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Zhang. VP University Affairs, we're going to allow individuals to ask any of the councillors questions on this. So VP University Affairs, I will recognize you and you can ask question.
Thank you. This is actually a general question for any of the candidates for this committee. I guess all I would ask, one of the big projects coming up for Equity Committee this year is revamping the equity policy. So if any of you are familiar with the equity policy, maybe describe your familiarity or maybe one thing that you would improve or change with our current equity policy.
All right, thank you very much. VP University Affairs will go in the same order that we presented. So Councillor Kirksue, then Councillor Williamson, and then Councillor Zhang.
Yes. So I am not really familiar with the SMU equity policy as much as the sexual violence policy as well as the enrollment restriction one, but I am more familiar with my own faculty's equity policy. So for me to make any judgments on that, I would need to read the equity policy and then make comments on it. But I would be more than happy to amend any kind of policy that needs to be amended to make sure that we give the best kind of an equity and intersectionality projects to SMU and McGill.
Perfect. Councillor Williamson.
I have a similar answer to Councillor Kirksue with my lack of familiarity with the SMU's equity policy. But what I have noticed overall is just a lack of consensus among the general faculties among their equity policy. So I think that's something that I find is incredibly important to me in coming up with a consensus on what should and should not be included in faculties along with SMU's policies.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Zhang.
So the same as the other two. Again, I'm not too familiar with the policy on equity, but I do remember having a conversation with the Science Undergraduate Society a couple months ago about the open letter to the Faculty of Management, like Des Hotels. And so what our equity commissioners kind of discussed with us is different ways that the MUS or Des Hotels could just improve equity-wise. So one that kind of stood out to me was to mandate equity training for all their executives. And I think this can be kind of broadened to all of McGill, so all of the AUS and US, so all of the faculty councils. So kind of just more of a standardized, everybody on exec, everyone at departmental execs get equity trained. And something that also came up in our last exec meeting is to have sustainability, put that at the very end. So how to be environmentally sustainable as well. So that's just kind of, I feel like having a standard overall equity training through all of McGill would be good.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Zhang. Thank you all three for participating. I'm about to launch the poll. Yep, Councillor Kirk, so you can have a follow-up. Any of the three can have a follow-up.
Okay, sorry, not as a follow-up, but as an addition to my previous speech, I just looked at the SMU policy and instantly the only thing that I had a problem with is, or that can be kind of altered and amended, is the context of the equity complaint that can be deemed appropriate. It says it's physical or sexual assault and nothing else, which I think an equity complaint can be made about much more broader things as well within the context of SMU. But that would be something that I can, if I'm in the committee, that I can look into and kind of broaden it. that's it.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Kirksue. We're going to launch the poll. I've launched it so that you can indicate you can vote more than once. Since we have 3, I'm going to allow each of you to vote twice. I can see everyone that votes. Individuals that are participating in their candidacy, you are allowed to vote. You can vote either once or twice. Please do not vote 3 times. I believe that you're honest. But I'm going to launch it. If you have any issues with it, let me know. This is a very new software that we're using, so if there's any problems, I'm good with it. Also, to the executives, SMU president just brought this up. So though you can't vote on motions, I'm going to allow you to vote on committee selections, just not main motions. All right, we're going to give it 30 more seconds. All right, we're going to end the poll. So Councillor Kirksue has received the most votes. So Councillor Kirksue will be serving as the representative on Equity Committee. Councillor Kirksue, if you want a second committee when we get back to after selecting everyone's first, let me know. That goes for all councillors. After you've received your first committee, we'll go through everyone else, and you can let me know if you want a second committee as well. And I could tell you a little bit about the time commitment if that's something you're worried about. But that's it for equity. Next up, we have clubs currently we have Councillor Mulvaney, Councillor Gee, and Councillor Daryanani. Are there any other individuals that would either like to add their name to be considered for clubs or rescind their name for clubs?
I would like to add my name to the consideration.
I would like to resend my name for the club committee.
All right, so we have 3 individuals. We have Councillor Gunderman, Councillor Daryanani, and Councillor Mulvaney. We're going to begin with Councillor Mulvaney. You have 2 minutes to speak on why you believe you'd be best suited to sit on clubs.
So I've been at McGill for 3 years now, and all 3 of those years I've been a member of one club or another. I'm someone that's benefited very much from the the social experience of joining a variety of campus groups. I think that it's a great way to broaden a curriculum, and I really if I was on this committee, I would look forward to helping progress that and just making sure that all the clubs are treated fairly and kept up to date with whatever policies could affect them. So.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Mulvaney. Councillor Daryanani.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Darshan. I'm the Senate Caucus Representative. I sat on SMU Legislative Council last year as the Vice President External of the Arts Undergraduate Society. So the reason why I put this as my top choice is because I think that while there's a lot of advantages of having 250 clubs on campus, there's a bit of an issue where some clubs get forgotten when it comes to their review committees. So I believe that joining this committee will allow me to help with full status applications for committees, allow those clubs that have interim status at the moment to allow them to fully establish as a proper club. I also think that it will be important to review your constitutions, make sure that there's fairness in their elections and such. I worked closely with the Vice President Student Life last year and the clubs committee rep last year as well, in order to make sure and really inquire about the terms of references for these committees and clubs on campus. So please vote for me.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll now move on to Councillor Gunderman.
Yeah, so my name is Lord Gunnerman. I'm the management counselor. I think you should vote for me because I recently, I'm very knowledgeable about the whole processes when it comes to applying to interim club status. I recently founded my own club, my own SSMU club, which is now an interim club. So I realized there's a few flaws to the whole process, and also considering COVID, there has to be a few updates when it comes to potentially extending the interim club status period, and also updating the criteria of full club status. So yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Gunderman. If there's any questions? Remember the gallery, Andre Lametti, we're gonna work on that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. If anyone has any questions for the individuals wishing to put their name forward for clubs committee, you can either indicate so on the speaking list or just unmute your microphone.
Yeah, I have a question for the candidates.
Yep.
Okay, great. So my question is, what do you think is an important criteria that interim or full status clubs should meet in order to be considered a SSMU club?
All right, thank you very much, VP Student Life. We'll first begin with Councillor Mulvaney.
All right, that's a great question. So in all honesty, I'm not too familiar with the criteria right now, but I think that the two most important pieces of it would be the longevity of the club on campus and obviously the quantity of SSMU members affected that are members of the club. So yeah, just in short, that would, off the top of my head, that would be my first answer. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Mulvaney. Councillor Darianani.
I can go ahead. So for me, I believe as long as they are on the same page when it comes to SSMU's values and missions and uphold those inclusivity, equity, and values that ensure that everyone is represented in the club, I believe that they are in line and on the right path to represent themselves. I don't think it has to do with the fact that their membership may be small or big, or the fact that they attract a lot of students on campus or not, or even the fact that the longevity of the club. I don't think that's the most important, as long as at that particular moment, this club is a place and a safe place for everyone to be, then I feel like the status can be granted in the sense that they can remain independent at the least.
All right, thank you very much. And Councillor Gunderman.
So I think sustainability is a most important criteria to just make sure to not run a loss, to just be an asset to the Mingle community. And also considering COVID, I think it's important right now to show effort, to show engagement, because everything is online and there's most likely not going to be any in-person events, because this also relates to me right now. We're trying to host online events and show effort in order to receive full club status.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Gunderman. Are there any other questions for the candidates for clubs committee? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed with voting. We're going to note that given that there are 2 seats on clubs committee that are eligible to be sat on, the 2 out of the 3 individuals with the highest amount of votes will receive the seats. So we'll begin the poll now. We'll give 30 more seconds for voting. All right, we are going to end voting. Councillor Darianani and Councillor Gunderman have received the highest amount of votes, and thus will be slated on to sit on clubs committee. Moving on, we will now begin Library Improvement Fund. I believe I'm just going to check to make sure, but Library Improvement Fund has 1 individual able to sit on the committee, and there are currently 3 individuals wishing to that have indicated Library Improvement Fund as their first choice. Are there any other individuals that would like to add their name onto for consideration or would like to rescind their name at this time? I'm just going to note that the counselors that have put LIF forward are Counselor Litvina, Counselor Fernandez, and Counselor Sood.
I'll rescind my.
You're going to rescind, or are you going to?
I'll rescind mine. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we have Counselor Litvina and Counselor Sood. Hearing no other individuals wishing to rescind or wishing to add their name, Counselor Litvina, you may begin with your 2-minute motivation.
In general, in my first year of McGill, I spent so much time in the library just not only studying there, but it was a place for social interaction, as well as just meeting people, and on top of that, just being able to study and learn in a calm environment. And I find that especially with this year, with the library being not as fully available, especially to students that are not in Montreal, I do think that I have some ideas as to how to allow for some of that environment to return, especially when and especially with the use of library materials as well. I think that in general, you could have a lot of the social interaction element of the library be moved to Zoom and sort of allow for there to be not necessarily like online library sessions, but like more, say, organization within, like, say, just library clubs and groups of people that, maybe want to work together while offline, just for that social aspect while studying, especially if you live alone. That's it.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Counselor Litvina. Counselor Sood.
Hi everyone, I'm Shivali. The reason why I believe I would be a good candidate to sit on the committee is because I consider the library as really an escape from home. And I know how important it is for some students, especially concerning like the circumstances right now. So what I thought I would bring to the committee is really some ideas on to improve the library for the next year, because possibly we're going to go back next year, or maybe even in winter semester. So some of my ideas I wanted to pitch in was like dryers in the bathroom, better ventilation in the study spaces, and I forgot the last one because I'm stressing out. But as of right now, that's basically it. I just wanted to pitch those ideas into the committee, and yeah.
All right, thank you very much, both of you. We're now going to move forward with questions. So we'll first recognize Counselor Smith.
Thank you, guys, and thank you to the two counselors who put their name forward for LIF. My question is, as you guys know, McGill released their workspaces plan for libraries. So my question is, what are your thoughts on that, and is there anything you would suggest improving to that plan?
All right, thank you, Counselor Smith. We'll just note for both individuals that you each will have 1 minute to motivate. We'll begin with Counselor Litvina.
Unfortunately, I have not seen it, and therefore I don't feel comfortable commenting on anything. Sorry.
All right, thank you very much, Counselor Sood.
Yeah, I haven't seen it as well, but if it's basically increasing the number of workspaces in the library, then that's something also that I wanted to pitch in. It's a really good idea. I know some of my friends have been complaining about it, and it just brings everyone together as a social space for studying with the whiteboards. So yeah, I would appreciate the idea.
All right, thank you very much. VP University Affairs.
Hello, everyone. So the LIF is also under University Affairs. One of the most important aspects of the committee includes making determinations of how to allocate the Library Improvement Fund, because it is like a very, very big fund, especially compared with SMU's other resources. So I guess I would ask, what is the most important consideration to make when you're evaluating applications for library improvement funding?
Thank you very much, VP University Affairs. Counselor Litvina.
I think that the most important thing to note would be how many people does this help? Because I feel like since the fund has to go for the entirety of the student body that uses the library, it should overall just be an improvement that doesn't just benefit a specific group that uses the library, but benefits everybody as much as possible.
All right, thank you very much, Counselor Litvina. Counselor Sood.
I believe that for the fund, we need to take into consideration, what Counselor Litvina said, what everyone wants. And a way to do that is to basically maybe put out a survey or something. But yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you very much, both of you. With that, seeing no further individuals with questions, we're going to proceed with voting. I've restricted this to, I believe, single choice voting. Given that there's only 2 individuals, you each may vote once. All right, I'm going to give 30 more seconds for voting. All right, we're going to announce the closure of voting. We pleased to announce that Councillor Sood has received the most amount of votes. So, Councillor Sood, you will now sit on the Library Improvement Fund Committee. Moving on to another one that was contested, we have, I believe, let me check. We have Environment. So we have currently 2 individuals with Environment marked as their first choice, Councillor Kunze and Councillor Bullhose. If there's any other individuals wishing to add their name to be considered for Environment at this time, or if they'd like to rescind, please speak at this time.
I'll resend my my application.
Okay. All right, with that, Councillor Kunzen, you will now sit on Environment. Is that still acceptable to you?
Yes, it is.
All right, with that, we've finished up the ones that are all contentious. So we're going to begin with everyone else's first choice. Councillor Smith, would you still like to sit on BOMCOM?
Yes, I would.
Councillor Bonin, would you still like to sit on Finance?
Yes, I would.
Councillor Wan, would you still like to sit on Francophone?
Yes, please.
Councillor Karasek, would you still like to sit on BOMCOM?
Yes, please.
We'll note that BOMCOM has now received the 2 people that will be sitting on it, and so thus no other individuals will be eligible to sit at this time. Councillor Gunderman, would you still like to sit on Funding?
I'm just wondering how significant the time commitment is to sit on 2 committees.
It really depends on 2 committees. It really depends. Some meet more than others. I can ask, so for example, like if Gifford could indicate, Gifford, I haven't sat on Funding and I'm not familiar with Funding. Could you just give a rough, sorry, my apologies, VP Finance, can you just give a rough idea of how many hours per week or hours per month Funding would? And given that Councillor Gunderman will also be sitting on clubs, VP Student Life, can you also indicate how many hours a week or month each of those would be? VP Finance, I'll run first.
Yeah, I can get into it. So the funding committee meets bi-weekly, so the time commitment isn't huge. Like obviously it depends how many funding applications we get, but I personally would say that you'd be able to balance both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add, I feel the same way for club committee. It's bi-weekly, about 1 to 2 hours meetings. So yeah.
Okay, so I would still like to sit on the committee.
Wait, sorry, jump back in. The funding committee meets weekly, actually, so that's my bad. But I still think that you'd be able to manage it.
Sounds good.
Councillor Gunderman, would you still like to sit?
Yes.
All right. Councillor Fernandez, would you still like to sit on Affordable Student Housing Committee?
Yes.
Councillor Bullhose, Community Engagement Committee, is that still acceptable?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Councillor Guy, would you also like to sit on funding?
Wait, is that my second choice? Is that my?
That's your second choice, but your first choice.
Oh,
yeah.
Wait. How about? Well, I could, but I was thinking I could switch up my second and third choice if it's possible.
Okay, I will note that down. Councillor Collins, would you still like to sit on mental health?
Yes, please.
Councillor Reid, would you still like to sit on steering?
If possible, I'd actually like to be considered primarily for the Comprehensive Governance Committee.
Okay, that works.
Thanks.
Would you like to sit on, you're also the only individual at CGRC is the first choice. You'd be acceptable putting you on it for CGRC?
Absolutely, thank you.
Councillor Lee. Oh, I'm going to note for all individuals, Councillor Wan, Councillor Lee, if this changes your mind, I'm just going to remind you from the email. Councillor Lee, Councillor Wan, Councillor Gee, and Councillor Morgan, who's not here, you are already sitting on the health and dental review. If that changes anything, if you'd like to retract, if you'd like to only sit on one, that's possible. If you'd like to sit on two, that's also fine. I think two is manageable, but ultimately it's up to you. So if you would like to make that change at that time, I know I've called on Councillor Wan already. So if that changes anything, but we'll go to, Councillor Lee, would you also like to sit on funding?
Yes, please. I'll be fine with both.
And Councillor Lee, you're fine for both. Okay, you're fine for both. Sorry, Councillor Wan, are you fine for both Francophone and health and dental review?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Gee.
Oh, sorry, I forgot what my third choice was. I was gonna say funding committee is fine with me, but you already asked someone else, so I'm okay with whichever you put me in. That's fine.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Okay, currently, I think have I missed out anyone on their first choice yet? If I haven't called you, let me know. Okay. Moving on to second. I'm going to have to review this. Okay. We have currently one individual who's indicated finance as their second choice. Councillor Roy, would you like to sit on this committee?
Yep.
Okay, next up we have steering, my favorite committee. We have three individuals going up for steering and there's two spots. So we have Councillor Smith, Councillor Collins, and Councillor Reid. Are there any other individuals that would like to put forward their name for steering or would like to rescind their name at this time?
I would like to rescind my name at this time.
Okay. All right. Counselor Smith, are you okay with taking on a second committee?
Yes, I am okay taking on a second committee.
Counselor Reed, are you okay taking on a second committee?
I certainly am. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to Community Engagement Committee. We have, let me see, we have, I believe, 4 individuals going for 1 spot on this. Let me just see. We're going to give preference to Counselor Mulvaney. Okay, yeah, my apologies, just wait. Okay, so we're going to give preference to, given that the only 2 individuals remaining after I've recalculated remaining on community engagement, given that Councillor Kunzen got her first choice, we're going to give community engagement to Councillor Mulvaney so that he may get his second. Councillor Mulvaney, are you still okay with this?
I am, yes.
All right, we will now begin with mental health. This one is quite competitive we have 6 individuals going for 1 spot. We have Councillor Kirkzu, Councillor, my apologies, we have Councillor Kirkzu, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Sood, Councillor Gee, and Councillor Dariani. I'm going to ask the individuals who have received their first choice, that is to say Councillor Dariani and Councillor Kirkzu, and I believe, and Councillor Sood, would you be okay not participating in this so that the individuals who have not received their first choice could go for their second?
Yes.
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 All right, thank you very much. So with that, we are going to Councillor Williamson and Councillor Gee. Councillor Gee, I'm just going to note once again, you would still sit on health and dental review regardless. So you're still going to have at least 1 committee when you come out of this. Are there any other individuals who would like to put forward their name for mental health at this time?
Speaker Hill, can I ask a question really quickly? Yes. I just wanted to know, before I debate this or whatever, if there's a possibility of having 2 equity positions, then I would like to rescind mine for mental health.
Like having an additional equity representative?
Correct.
Unfortunately, there isn't, just given that it's set out by the terms of reference and the committee terms of reference, so the number of equity representatives can't change.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We are going to begin with Councillor Gee to present. You have 2 minutes, and then we'll go to Councillor Williamson. So Councillor Gee.
Hi, I'm Alina. I am the nursing rep. I stand for VP External in the Nursing Undergraduate Society. And I feel like mental health is such an important topic for me, and especially for university students, especially during this COVID period, where some people may be stuck at home or self-isolated. They really need the support, and that's why we really need to advocate for more mental health services that's more accessible for all the students. And in terms of experiences, I unfortunately haven't had any mental health experience in any kind of mental health related clubs, but I am in nursing, and we've received some special trainings for mental health related consultations or or also suicide related as well. If someone wants to end their life, for example, how would you approach them, and how would you make them open up, etc. So I really hope that I would be a good candidate for this position. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Counselor Williamson, you can go now.
Thank you. I have extensive training and experience with mental health, specifically at McGill. I am also VP external for arts, and under my portfolio, I have the AUS Mental Health Committee. Serving as a floor fellow, I have interacted with McGill's mental health policies and abilities, and there's a lot of reform that I could see happening under SSMU's legislative assistance with McGill, and some advocacy for students, because I do not feel that McGill provides adequate mental health resources.
All right, thank you very much, Counselor Williamson. We'll now provide an opportunity for individuals to ask questions. So if anyone would like to ask the candidates a question, you can indicate so on the speaking list. All right, seeing no individuals, we're going to move forward with the vote. I'm just going to make sure that it's single person, single choice vote. Oh, yep. VP University Affairs, feel free to ask a question.
Sorry, I didn't have time to add my name. My only question would be, do you feel that McGill's current support systems for mental health are adequate? And if not, what needs to change for them to be able to support students?
Thank you very much. VP University Affairs, Counselor Gee.
I feel like McGill doesn't provide enough, or if so, that it's not everyone can access it, or they're not being told that there's these services. I feel when I came in first year, I think I was there. I saw signs in the library, but I didn't know like how to reach out. Or later on, I found out there were like phone lines where you can call if you need help, and clubs where you can join to help other peers. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Counselor Gee. Counselor Williamson.
I also do not believe that McGill provides adequate resources or information on ways to get mental health on campus. For me, I think that can change, especially now with promotion of more mental health programs and therapies, but also extending what services are offered at McGill by professionals, as I feel that a lot of student clubs and student leaders on campus have taken on a larger mental health role than they should be. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Counselor Williamson. Counselor Collins.
Hi. So under the committee terms of reference clause 10.3, a responsibility of the mental health committee is coordinating events and programming for the promotion and destigmatization of mental health on campus. I was wondering if either of you had any ideas about programming for mental health on campus within the capacity of the mental health committee.
Counselor Gee and then Counselor Williamson.
Unfortunately, I haven't had any experiences in touch with the mental health side or clubs of McGill, but I had experiences like organizing events with certain clubs, and also I was in like residence council in first year. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Counselor Williamson.
For me, a large event that I hope that SSMU can push and continue helping with is advocating for mental health therapies for BIPOC students on campus, especially during such a challenging time with all that is occurring both within the US and Canada in regards to race relations.
All right, thank you very much, Counselor Williamson. Counselor Reed for a question.
Hi there. Anybody who's followed the Untold McGill Instagram account on Instagram knows that mental health services are not only inadequate in terms of quantity and access, but are also actually often creating racist or homophobic or transphobic experiences for the students that seek them out. I personally have most noticed stories of anti-Asian racism coming from the actual mental health providers that are sometimes given to students on campus. What are your views on how that needs to change and what we can do to combat that as we transition towards, ideally, a better mental health provisions for our students? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reed, Councillor Gee, and Councillor Williamson.
I feel like it is out of words, I'm so nervous. It is a very relevant problem in McGill, and I feel like in order to address that problem, I think extensive training will need to be done. So something, putting the emphasis on try not to be biased if you're like the provider of of providing mental health services, and you're not trying to be racist or homophobic or anything like that. And I think it's just extensive training needs to be done and needs to be emphasized at McGill.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Gee. Councillor Williamson.
I agree with Councillor Gee that excessive training is definitely important and key to this, but I also believe that this is part of a larger problem at McGill with diversity hiring and having inclusive faculty and representation on campus. So I would push to have more inclusive representation in our mental health professionals.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Williamson and Councillor Gee. There are no other individuals wishing to pose a question to either of you, so we'll proceed with voting. I will launch the poll now. All right, we're going to announce the closure of voting in 30 seconds. All right, voting is now closed. Councillor Williamson, you received the most votes, so you will be sitting on Mental Health Committee with Councillor Collins. All right, Councillor Karasik, would you still like to sit on CGRC?
Yes, if possible.
You would be taking on two committees. Is that acceptable with you?
Yep. Sorry, was I muted for that?
No, I heard you.
Okay, good.
Councillor Fernandez, Councillor Fernandez, what are you sitting on right now? Oh, yeah, never mind. All right, moving on to third choices. Currently, Councillor Roy, would you like to sit on Indigenous Affairs?
Yes.
And Councillor Roy, you're okay with taking on two committees?
Yes, I am.
Counselor Kirksey, would you like to sit on spin?
No, thank you.
Would you like to take on a second committee at all?
No, thank you.
Counselor Gee, would you like to sit on funding?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
So that would be, so currently your two choices left that you've indicated for your second committee would be funding or spin. Are you okay taking on a second committee? And B, do you prefer funding to spin?
Yeah, I am okay with sitting on 2 committees, and I prefer funding to spin.
All right, we currently have 2 individuals up for service review and there are 2 seats available. So I have Counselor Zhang and Counselor Daryanani. Would you both like to sit on services review?
No, thank you.
Nope.
Can I just be reminded of the time commitment? I think it's bi-weekly, but
Services, VP Student Life, would you like to indicate how you would have a better indication of how long the time commitment would be?
Yeah, for services review committee, I would have to double check like the terms of reference, but I think it is bi-weekly. Yeah.
And I'll note, Counselor Zhang, that you don't have a committee thus far. So I'm just going to move straight on to you before we go on. So currently you have Finance, Services Review, and Affordable Student Housing Committee. I'm going to give you one now. Which one would you prefer? Which one would be your first choice out of those 3?
is it okay to choose another one?
What's your one?
Gendered and sexual violence.
That's not a committee that you're eligible to sit on.
That's my bad. Okay, sorry. Could you repeat the 3 again?
Finance, Services Review, and Affordable Student Housing Committee.
Could I do affordable student housing, please?
Okay. All right, we're going to move. Now it's sort of, because everyone has basically received a spot, we're just going to see who hasn't received any right now. Okay, Counselor Litvina, I'm just going to read out all the ones that are available to you. So you can sit on Francophone Affairs, Funding, Services Review, Spin, or Finance.
Could I possibly sit on Finance?
Okay, we have 2 individuals going for Spin, and we have 2 open spots. So Counselor Williamson and Counselor Sood, would you both like to sit on Spin?
Can I just be reminded? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, can I be reminded of the time commitment for Spin?
Okay, I can't remember the individual dealing with this aspect of the VP internal portfolio right now, for which executive, but Spin generally, based on my interactions with past VP internals and previously, Spin is a hard one to figure out, given that first off, the events are going to be online. In years past, they've been really, like, I believe the meetings have either been bi-weekly or weekly, an hour each. And then because Spin is responsible for the SSMU's Halloween party, and they're responsible for FACO, neither of which we know if it's happening because of COVID. If they are happening, it's quite a heavy time commitment during those 2 times of year. More so for FACO, everything else is basically an hour every other week. And the executive who's overseeing that portion of the portfolio, if you'd like to speak on that more, if you would like to correct me, feel free.
Pretty sure. So Spin is supposed to meet weekly, but that can be changed, especially given the fall semester. Like, we're not really planning on hosting any events. And I've been in contact with the internal logistics coordinator who sits on the committee, who, yeah, essentially they don't have any big plans to have large events for fall. Winter might be different. Like, obviously we can't really tell what that's going to look like, but I would say that the time commitment for Spin this year is certainly less than other years.
All right, thank you very much. VP Finance, are there any other questions for individuals who are currently slated to sit on Spin? Okay, Councillor Williamson, would you still like to sit on Spin?
Yes, I would.
And Councillor Sood, would you still like to sit on Spin?
Yes.
Okay, so currently we have 2, the only individuals left on the board, we have 2 individuals going for finance, so Councillor Collins and Councillor Kunzen. So you both already have a committee. So if you'd like to rescind your name from finance, let me know. And then Councillor Kunzen, you also have indicated that you would like to be put, your 5th choice was, I believe, funding. And there's room for 1 individual on funding and room for 1 more individual on finance.
If that's okay, I'd like to rescind my name for both of those.
Councillor Collins?
I'd like to be on finance.
All right. So thus has been concluded. If you don't have a seat, I believe I've designated that you should. If you don't, please let me know. I'm going to read them out. For affordable student housing, Councillor Fernandez and Councillor Zhang will be sitting. For BOMCOM, Councillor Smith and Councillor Karasik will be sitting. For clubs, Councillor Darianani and Councillor Gunderman. For community engagement, Councillor Bullhose and Councillor Mulvaney. For environment, Councillor Kunzen. For equity, Councillor Kirksu. For francophone affairs, Councillor Wan. For funding committee, Councillor Gunderman, Lee, and G. For indigenous affairs, Councillor Roy. For library improvement fund, Councillor Sood. For mental health, Councillor Collins and Councillor Williamson. We have no individual sitting on services review. For steering committee, we have Councillor Reed and Councillor Smith. For Spin, we have Councillor Williamson and Councillor Sood. For finance, we have Councillor Bonin, Councillor Roy, Councillor Litvina, and Councillor Collins. For for CGRC, we have Councillor Reed and Councillor Karasik. And for health and dental review, we have Councillor Morgan, Councillor G, Councillor Lee, and Councillor Wan. Does anyone have any objections to that? All right, hearing none. Can someone motion for a 5-minute recess so that I can prepare this in a proper motion so that we can approve it this evening? I just need a mover and seconder. All right, thank you very much. May I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All right, is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion to grant a 5-minute recess has been granted. consent items. Okay, this is going to be a new thing for all of you. So I'm just going to briefly explain what consent items is. So basically, I'm going to grant you a 5-minute recess to fill out a form known as the consent vote. So within your within your drive, you should have access to a Google Doc entitled Google Counselor Voting Directions. Once you click that, it's going to pull up a list of all of the motions eligible to be voted on tonight, as well as the consent vote. The only vote, you're going to need this document throughout the Legislative Council, but the only one that's relevant to you is the consent vote. You're going to be directed to, so you're going to click on the vote that says consent vote, I believe. Basically what the consent vote is, it's an opportunity for you to vote on all motions that are currently up for approval at Legislative Council this evening. So what it means is it's a quick vote, which is to say, if you approve something, that means you don't believe it needs debate. It's not contentious. It provides an opportunity for motions that you don't believe are contentious to save us the time of going through debate and going through question period when there is no question period or debate needed. So basically you have the option of voting approved, which is to say you don't believe there's debate, which is you believe that there is debate, and you can abstain. Abstaining doesn't count. We just, in order for it to receive unanimous consent, it has to be 100% approved. Though I encourage you to vote however you like, I would strongly encourage, if you are voting debate, that this has been an issue we've had in the past where people vote debate and then there is actually no question period or debate that actually happens. So it ends up adding more time on the schedule that is needed. So assuming that you've read over all of the motions that have been submitted, which you should, with the exception of the one that was just submitted regarding committee allocation, this will be your opportunity to vote on these items if you think they can just easily be passed. Does anyone have any questions on consent voting at this time?
Could you just repeat where I could find the form?
Yeah, sorry, you tell me, only because I need to take it down to the recording secretary. Who just spoke?
It was Joy, Councillor Zhang.
Yeah, so in the Google Drive that you've been shared access, I'm going to find it with you. So the shared Legislative Council Drive, when you click on the 2020 to 2021 Google Drive, it's going to bring you to, I believe, Future. There's a folder that's going to be called Future, and then it's going to, I believe, pull up dates or meet. I'm going to check right now. Yeah, 2020 to 2021, you click that folder, and then it's going to give you, it's going to provide, says meetings. That's where the meetings, that's where all our information about today's meeting will be. Then you're going to click folder 1, 2020-0908. And then there is a Google Doc that says Counselor Voting Directions 2020-0908. And then the first link, consent approval, is the link that you're going to be using for this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any other individuals with questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
One of the motions we can't access it, not the interim provision for the elections and referenda timeline, but the not interim version. It's inaccessible.
Okay.
I had a chance to read it before today.
Tell me what number it is, just so I can go through it that way. What number on the consent?
My tablet is ignoring.
Pardon, sorry?
G.
Okay. Yeah, the consent, Councillor 1, the consent approval form is closed until I've announced the opening of voting. Okay, I'm just going to check item G now. Okay, I'm going to put it in motions. It's going to be called a copy of motion. I'm not going to rename it, just so I'll rename it after the meeting. But for the time being right now, it's going to be called the copy of motion regarding. It's going to be the same, just it's going to say copy, and it's instead of a shortcut, it's going to be the actual doc itself. But you're going to have to automatically, yeah, you're going to have to look through it. You can't get automatically linked to it, but it should be in now. I'm going to grant, are there any other questions? Okay, are there any other questions on consent approval? All right, hearing none, we'll begin the 5-minute period now. And voting is now open. And if voting doesn't work, you just refresh and it will work.
Just while all the counselors are voting, if I could point out two things. Right. So I think A and B are flipped in the agenda. Yeah, thank you.
All right, everyone, you have 1 more minute for voting. Fifteen more seconds, counselors. All right, with that, we'll announce the closure of voting. No motion received unanimous approval. So as such, all items on the agenda will be subject to question period and debate at this evening's meeting. Moving on to item A, item 11, new business. We have a number of items on the agenda this evening. We will begin with item A, notice of motion regarding the adoption of the Human Resources Policy 2020-0908. We will have a VP University Affairs to motivate.
Hello, everyone. I will try to keep it quick since it's just a notice. Basically, so in 2018, there was a research report published by the Employment Equity Assistant detailing suggestions for how SMU could improve our HR practices. To my knowledge, that report was never formalized into any policies or codified in any way. Some of the practices were implemented, but basically, I took that as my cue to essentially overhaul the human resources policy. It's currently almost tripled in length, including a lot of provisions that have already been implemented and some new stuff that, according to the recommendations, I believe are necessary for employment equity at SMU and just general accountability and fair practice. I encourage you all to read the motion, to read the comparative policy and the new policy. And if you have any, questions, feel free to ask them now or at our next session.
All right, thank you very much. Just to clarify, given that this is a notice of motion, notice of motions are simply motivation and an alert that a motion will become upcoming in the next legislative council. So all questions and debate regarding this motion will occur at the next legislative council. So moving on to item 11B, notice of motion regarding amendments to the internal regulations of elections and referenda 2020-0908. SMU president to motivate.
Yeah, thanks. I can also keep this brief. So essentially, there's three similar motions, so I'm just trying to figure out which one is which. So this one is I want to say this one's to modify the timeline so that we can accommodate everything given that COVID is happening this semester. Just give me a second to confirm that. Yeah, that's right. So that's essentially all. We just have to modify the IRs to reflect this year in particular because of COVID. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. SMU President, given that that's a notice of motion, all questions and debate will be regarding this motion will occur next Legislative Council. Moving on to item C, motion regarding an interim provision for amendments to the Human Resources Committee Terms of Reference 2020-0625. We'll just note interim provisions. All three interim provisions were made by the Board of Directors during the time in which Legislative Council was not sitting. For motivating, so to speak, I'll defer to the SMU President. SMU President, if you'd rather provide it to another executive, you are free to do so. SMU President.
Yeah, we're on 11C, right?
Yep.
Can I defer to? Wait, can we turn the reference?
I think I can speak on this one.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, VP Student Life.
Yes, so this is a motion that was moved at the Board of Directors meeting by a director of the Board of Directors who's part of the HR committee. If you'll scroll down to the very bottom, there were just a few minor changes that were made to the terms of reference. Because there was a title change with our human resources manager, they became a director, and then we also added in the human resources manager and made the general manager non-voting. So those are pretty much the main changes. It's just changes to the terms of reference. I stand for any questions.
All right, thank you very much, VP Student Life. With that motivation, we will now begin question period. All individuals wishing to ask questions can indicate so on the speaking list. Right. Seeing no individuals with questions, we'll move forward with debate. All individuals wishing to participate in debate, you can indicate so on the speaking list. All right, seeing no individual wishing to participate in debate on this time, we'll move forward with the vote. Just give me a second to open up the voting form, counselors. All right, voting is now open, counselors. All right, we'll close voting in 1 minute, councillors. Councillor Mulvaney, it's the form for item 11C.
Excuse me, sorry, speaker. I think I'm doing something wrong here.
Okay. Are you?
Which form? Yeah, you said 11C.
Yeah, 11C. So it's the motion regarding an interim provision regarding amendments to the Human Resources Committee terms of reference 2020-0625.
Yep. Oh, okay. Yeah, my fault. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry, who's speaking?
Councillor Darnani.
Yeah.
Is it possible to revote on the consent form?
No.
Okay. I hate to say this and interject. I'm sorry if this is out of order, but I feel like there may be a small misunderstanding as to what the consent form is, especially because committee allocations is something that I don't think should have not passed as like a consent item. But anyways, I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah, so I'm going to strike yours out of order, but I can personally say that. Yeah. If you have any questions regarding what a consent vote is, we'll go through it again because this has happened a few times. We'll go through it again. If you don't understand consent vote, it's no worries. I understand where you're coming from, though, Councillor Daryanani. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, we are going to announce the closure of voting. With 19 in favor, 19 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstain, the motion is approved. Moving on to item D, motion regarding an interim provision for amendments to the McGill Debating Union Constitution 2020-07-08. VP Student Life, given that you had originally motivated this during board, I will defer this to you. If you'd like to pass it on to another executive to motivate, you are free to do so.
Yeah, I'm happy to motivate for this motion. So essentially, long story short, the McGill Debating Union has constitutional amendments that they've been wanting to make since 2018. But because their original set of amendments in 2018 was sent to basically a defunct email, it was a role that didn't exist anymore. So those amendments were never brought to the club committee and thus never ratified, never approved. Following that, there was another set of amendments that were made in 2019. Again, were sent to the wrong email, so were never approved. So now this summer, I was approached by them. They asked me if we could finally approve their constitutional amendments. And I said I would do that for them through board and then through legislative council instead of through the normal route, which is through club committee, which gets approved at these 2 levels. As an exception to them, because then they would be able to implement this for the summer and then for the following fall. Because if we had waited until this academic semester, it would be too late, and they still have tournaments that they have to run in fall. So that was the nature of this motion, just to approve their amendments so that they can function for fall and for this academic year. I stand for questions.
All right, thank you very much, VP Student Life. Moving on to question period. I've indicated that there's question period now on the speaking list. If you would like to ask a question in question period, feel free to indicate so at this time. Recognizing no questions, we'll move on to debate. If there are any individuals wishing to participate in debate at this time, you can indicate so on the speaking list. Seeing no individuals wishing to participate in debate, we will now move forward with the vote. And the voting form is now open, councillors. We'll announce the closure of voting in 30 seconds. All right, we'll announce the closure of voting. The results are as follows: 18 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstaining. The motion is approved. Moving on to item 11E, we have the motion regarding an interim provision for elections and referenda, timeline 2020 to 2021, 2020-08 to 21. We have SMU President.
Yeah, thanks. So this motion is to allow the campaigning, because I think campaigning for FYC and for, just give me a sec here, for FYC and for, where's the other one? Wait, sorry, I'm on the wrong tab. Give me a sec. Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm on the right one now. Cool. So for FYC, for Clubs and Services, the timeline is supposed to be to allow them to start campaigning. The timeline is after the first Legislative Council, but this motion was so that they could do it starting September 2nd, which was last week. Yeah, that's all that I have to say on this matter.
All right, thank you very much, SMU President. We will now enter into question period. All individuals wishing to ask questions can indicate so on the speaking list. Seeing no individuals with questions, we will move forward with debate. All individuals wishing to participate in debate on item 11E can indicate so on the speaking list. Seeing no individual wishing to participate in debate on item 11E, we will move forward with the vote. Voting is now open, councillors. We'll now to the closure of voting in 1 minute. All right, 15 seconds. Voting is now closed. The results of the vote are as follows: 19 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstaining. The motion is approved. Moving on to item F, motion regarding adoption of the standing rules for the 2020-2021 Legislative Council 2020-09-08. SMU President, would you like to speak?
Can I defer to the speaker to motivate this motion?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pull it up real quick. I'm also going to note that I'm going to need an extension on my time when I get to it, so I'm going to ask, just because I'm going to basically summarize all the votes, all the things that have been approved for the standing rules. All right, so as you may be aware, we've with the new constitution, we've approved Code Verano will now be our standard presiding parliamentary rules for procedure. But as you are also aware, if you attended the SMU orientation, is that we also have standing rules that are meant to first off supersede our pre-existing parliamentary procedure in a way that better fits the needs of Legislative Council and is more representative of Legislative Council. Thus comes in our standing rules. So our standing rules are also supposed to make parliamentary procedure more specific. So at Appendix A, you could see the standing rules that we've developed. We're going to first off note basic items, decorum, as I mentioned in the SMU orientation. Decorum is very much something that needs to be practiced. I've highlighted various points of that prior. I'll also note if you ever want to supersede these the standing rules at any point, it requires a 3/4 majority. 2 unexcused absences, as you may be aware, if you are unexcused twice, you are automatically suspended. If you are late 4 times unexcused, you are automatically suspended, and there's different combinations you can do with that. Regarding, it also details what you can do with proxies, detailing how you treat me, how you treat other members of council, other members of the gallery, as well as the dais and the executives, as well how to address each other, all very, very much things we've discussed during SMU orientation. Thing to note, this is going to be different, but if we are going to be discussing if we have guest speakers where we were actually in person, all laptops, excluding ours of the dais, would be closed in respect to the guest speaker. Reporting, all of you counselors are expected to report once a semester. I've indicated this on the schedule that should be in the Google Drive. As well, executives are mandated to report once every single legislative council. As well, committees are expected to report based on the committee terms of reference. That's also in the calendar that's been specified. Regarding scheduling, all committees and reports must be submitted by the Sunday prior to Legislative Council, so up to the with at least 5 days in advance. So Sunday at 11:55 p.m. EST. Late reports, if you submit a late report, are going to be equivalent to half of 1 absence. Failure to submit a report will be equivalent to 1 absence in total. Speaking, default speaking time. With that, My time has extended. Can someone extend?
Président, je propose une motion de prolonger le temps de 5 minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Smith. So we have a motion to extend by 5 minutes. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Karasik. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, I will grant 5-minute extension to myself. Speaking time. So the speaker is allowed to interject at any time if an individual needs a point of information, point of parliamentary inquiry, to enforce parliamentary procedure, standing rules, the IRs, or to maintain order. So this includes striking any point you may say. I'm the only individual allowed to interrupt others. I'm also allowed to extend this to the parliamentarian if necessary. To speak, typically members must raise their placards. In this case, you will write your name on the speaking list. Members of the gallery may do so by using the raise hand feature via the virtual platform or by sending me a personal chat through Zoom. When another individual has the floor, you are not to speak at any time. Speaking limits. So all individuals have a default speaking time of 1 minute. This is to say every question you have or every interjection you have in debate is limited to 1 minute. It can be granted after your time has been extended. As you may be aware, one bang on the gavel symbolizes that you have 15 seconds to go until your time elapses. And then once I continually bang the gavel, that has indicated that your time has elapsed and you must stop talking immediately to either finish your sentence or for your time to be extended. For reports, including executives, committees, for councillor reports, 3 minutes. And for executive and committee reports, you have 5 minutes each. Default, again, all question periods are always 5 minutes. If you obviously have no questions, the 5 minutes won't continue. Debates also always will last 5 minutes at minimum. This is to say, if you're going to call the question to move into debate immediately, debate must occur for 5 minutes before you can call the question. Let's see. Main motions, all motions require one mover and one seconder prior to Legislative Council. The mover and seconder may not both be members of the executive. The mover and seconder must both be recognized representatives to Legislative Council, and foregoing rules shall not apply for motions that must be moved by the executive, such as the budget. As well, timelines. This is new from last year. If you've been on last year, if you were on council before, you understood the issue with late motions. We've decided that we're essentially going to ban the practice of late motions. For late motions, up to one motion submitted after the deadline shall be considered as a late motion at the discretion of the dais. And this is to say something time sensitive. If it's something that can wait, just because it's the only one that has been submitted does not mean that the dais will automatically approve it. A mandatory 2-minute recess after we've indicated that there is a late motion, regardless of if we received it 2 days before or if we received it during council. You will be granting us a 2-minute recess so that the dais may review it. As well, there may be one notice of motion that's set out that allowed. So up to one notice of motion and one late motion allowed. However, all of the other motions submitted after the deadline or all of the motions deemed fit by the dais will be presented for consideration at the next Legislative Council. And let's see. Amendments. All amendments must be submitted to the parliamentarian in writing via email. You must submit the email. You must submit the amendment to the parliamentarian before you say you have an amendment. That is to say, do not alert us that you have an amendment before you have written it, unless you require a recess, in which that is acceptable. For voting, like I said, all votes related to procedure or incidental or subsidiary motions of non-substance, voting will occur through virtual polling, which we have done. For votes of subsidiary motions, votes will first occur by unanimous vote, and if unanimity is not possible, voting will then commence through virtual polling. That concludes all I have to say. We'll now move on to questions. So all individuals with questions can indicate so on the speaking list. I'll first recognize Councillor Darianani.
Thank you, Speaker. My question has to do with just stylistic, possibly error of the appendix. It says 2019 to 2020. Should that be 2020 to 2021? Or does that refer to last year's council by any chance?
No, that was just a typo. I'm changing it now.
Perfect.
All right. Are there any other questions on the motion regarding the adoption of the standing rules? Hearing none, we'll move forward with debate. Are there any individuals wishing to participate in debate on the adoption of the standing rules at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the vote. The voting form is now open, councilors. Thirty more seconds, councilors. All right, with that, we'll announce the closure of voting. With 19 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstained, the motion is approved. We'll also note, for the purpose of the dais, in collaboration, so to speak, with Quebec labor laws, we are granted, every 2 hours, this is just for the future, every 2 hours that we spend working as me and Wing, we are entitled to a 10-minute recess, which is to say Legislative Council recesses every 2 hours. So thus consider this your first 10-minute recess at 2017. Counselors, you can do whatever you want in the 10 minutes, but please ensure that you are back on Zoom by 2027. on this matter. We will move to a vote. Voting is now open, councillors. We'll announce the closure of voting in 30 seconds. We'll give 15 more seconds so we hit quorum on our voting. Right, thank you very much. We'll announce the closure of voting. With 18 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstaining, the motion is approved. Thus concludes our items pertaining to new business. We will now move on to item 12, executive reports. We'll proceed with item 12A, report of the president. SSMU president, you may now present.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, this report covers everything from the start of my term, so June 1st until today. So I'll just go through that with you. So I split it up into the various, I guess, pillars or sections of my portfolio. So the first one is governance. So under the governance, so over the summer, there was a judicial board hearing on the validity of the 2020 Constitution that was approved at last year's winter referendum because it wasn't submitted in French. So I was working on that case over the summer. Basically, the results of the case are that the 2020, so the Constitution that was voted on was declared invalid because it wasn't approved in French. But I guess the judgment won't come into effect until November 1st, giving us enough time to run a special referendum, which will be coming soon, to approve both the English and French versions. So that's it for the judicial board. Senate caucus, there's just standing meetings with the Vice President of University Affairs. We also hired a governing documents researcher to help us compare our own documents with those of other student unions, both in the province and across the country. Under advocacy, there's nothing for the Senate or board of directors because those have not started as of yet. For sustainability, there's been some meetings with the Moose, which is the McGill Office for Sustainability, as well as meetings with the sustainability commissioners over the summer. And so with that, we created, if you've seen on like some of the advertising on Facebook, there's a tech drive. It's just to raise awareness and collect technology for folks who might not have it this year, given that at least the fall semester is going to be conducted remotely. So for my projects, if you remember from my campaigning, I talked about a long-term plan for society. So I created the first draft of the 5-year plan and did consultations internally with the SSMU managers and directors. And then I did a second round of consultations with the SSMU services and advocacy groups. So there's going to be lots of rounds of consultations coming up, and I hope to pass this towards the end of the fall semester. For the updates on the University Center construction 3501 Peel, so those are now done. Because of COVID, obviously, they're not going to open at full capacity. So yeah, more to come on that. I think if it's the parliamentarian who's sharing the screen, you can scroll down. Cool. Yeah, so committees, so the President's Roundtable, so that got revamped this year. So I've been meeting with the presidents. We do it every 2 months. So we're gonna have another one towards the end of September. Just like this year, among others, like we'll definitely have to keep in touch with all the remote learning that's going on to make sure that we're all kept in the loop and can help each other wherever that comes up. So bicentennial steering committee has only been.
Thank you very much, President. Can we have an extension on the report of the SMU president at this time?
Extend by 3 minutes.
All right. Sorry, Councillor Smith, can you repeat how many minutes?
Motion to extend by 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. So we have a motion to extend by 3 minutes. May I have a second?
I second that motion.
Sorry, who spoke at that?
I second that motion.
Councillor Williamson, thank you very much. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, SMU President, you may now speak for an additional 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So bicentennial steering committee, there's only been one meeting so far, but that's going to be coming since McGill's celebrating its bicentennial anniversary next year. So hopefully more to come during the fall semester. Construction safety working group, nothing much is going on there. They're talking about, like, if you're in Montreal and you've been near campus, you've probably seen the construction starting around Dr. Penfield. So I should have more updates around that. I was also on the Road Scholarship Selection Committee with admin. So I met a couple times with Principal Fortier, Provost Manfredi, and Associate Provost Campbell to discuss their plan to combat anti-racism at McGill to be presented by September 30th. I also met additionally with Angela Campbell to discuss the potential education module on systemic racism. So this would be similar to the It's On Us module that currently exists on my courses. TLS, there were just a couple forums over the summer for remote delivery. With the DIPSO office, there were some standing meetings with the Vice President of University Affairs as well as with the General Manager and Building Director. UCREW, which is the Provincial Student Association or National Student Association. I stand in whenever a Vice President External can't make it. So he's sick today, but he should be able to provide more updates on that in his next report. Student care, we met with the student care team, which is they provide our health and dental insurance. So there's just been a couple of meetings on that. We also have a new service dialogue that's starting. And then we had, last year we hired a new general manager, so I was just helping set up meetings to coordinate him and the admin. For events, I did the speech at Parents Tent, which was virtual this year. It went really well. And then also I was contacted to speak on a panel with other students on like what we would like to see regarding like food options and locations on campus given COVID. So that was good. I don't know if there's anything else on the report, if the parliamentarian can scroll down if there is. If not, then I'm done.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, SMU President. Going on to questions on the report of the SMU President, we'll recognize Councillor Daria Niani.
Thank you, Speaker. I just have two small questions. Number one, I'll just ask one by one. The first one is, could you elaborate on the technology drive? How does it work and what is it exactly?
Yeah, so basically we're looking to collect old laptops or like iPads, whatever that people have lying around that they're not using. So we're gonna collect those. We're hoping to hire someone who'd be able to fix them up if they're broken. And then we would be delivering those to students or community members in need so that they can study appropriately given this semester.
All right, thank you very much, SMU President. Seeing no further questions on the report of the SMU President, we'll move on with the report of the VP University Affairs. Okay, VP University Affairs, you may begin.
Cool. Okay, so I will try and keep this as quick as possible. So starting off, start with university affairs academic stuff. Senate activity was not active during the summer, but there was still a lot of Senate activity. Early on, finalized all the committee assignments for student senators and members at large. I believe there's only 2 seats that haven't been allocated, both of which are to do with Skills 21. Met a couple times for scholarship review. We have one more meeting. Senate nominating and steering met once. Each was the first meeting. All nominations to undergraduate committees were, all undergraduate nominations committee were approved. And then for standing, we approved the Senate standing rules. There were also 2 questions approved and 1 deferred. Right now, I'm working on a motion with a couple senators to re-implement the winter 2020 extended SU option. Hopefully, that'll be presented to the APC. I met with the APC senators today, and the first September Senate meeting is scheduled for the 22nd. University advocacy. Over the summer, TLS hosted a couple forums on remote delivery. We released a student experience mini survey and then used that to inform our advocacy. I'm also sitting on the working group reviewing the policy on harassment discrimination. That's been going on since June. The finalized draft was presented for Senate. All of the recommendations from, I believe it was last council's motion concerning the policy were implemented, so that's really cool. Also did a lot of advocacy on academic racism, both in the faculties or departments of anthropology and philosophy. Did some work with the History Students Association regarding university tenure. The Indigenous Affairs Commissioner released a report with calls to action. I helped allocate all of those to the appropriate university governing bodies. And lately, I've been working with a student to basically create a fundraiser and student aid, basically bursary to support Lebanese students. I've had a couple meetings relating to that. Senate caucus, we met once a month over the summer. If you could scroll down, parliamentarian, thank you. Met a couple times over the summer. We just started regular meetings. Still in the process of senator training. The official Senate orientation is next week. Over the course of the summer, we reallocated the vacant nursing seat to physical therapy and occupational therapy, still waiting on the NUS to elect their associate senator. So for equity, there was mobilization for anti-Black racism and against the PEQ reforms. For employment equity, which has been my biggest equity project so far, I talked about the HR platform. We also I tentatively fixed the problem with dead naming on Dayforce. Those solutions have been implemented. Worked on a project for wage subsidies, and as I said, overhauled the HR policy. For Bacon, that was passed. We established the naming guidelines. Nomination and submission forms are up. We're still scheduling the fall meetings. And then if you could scroll down, equity infrastructure, working with Student Life and External to implement triage systems for our internal procedures to replace the first come first served system we have now. Doing some accountability reviews, setting up commissionerships for Black affairs and queer affairs, and facilitated some executive training sessions. Then for research and advocacy, we have 3 researchers working right now. The preferred names use researcher from last year got an extension, so still working. The final draft should be on my desk within the next week.
Is there a desire from council to extend the report of the VP University Affairs at this time?
I move to extend speaking time by 4 minutes.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't see who spoke. Can you just indicate so for the speaking, for the recording secretary? Perfect, thank you very much, Councillor Roy. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Karasik. Councillor Roy, can you just remind me for how long that was?
4 minutes?
All right, thank you very much. Is there any opposition for a 4-minute extension at this time? Hearing none, the 4-minute extension has been granted.
Thank you. It's hard to cover an entire summer in 3 minutes. So yeah, that extension was granted. Final report should be on my desk within the next week. Two new researchers, one for academic accessibility and accommodations, which is kind of acting as an informal audit of the OSD, and next for student health and wellness, doing the same thing for the Wellness Hub. They're in their early stages, but it's looking like they're already making some good progress. So next is the Francophone Affairs researcher. So for the time being, Francophone Affairs is going to be under the University Affairs portfolio. The contract expired for that researcher, but they've agreed to continue working as a volunteer. That report has been finalized and it is currently being reviewed. Okay, so for Know Your Rights, the content this year was updated and digitized. The SRAC was tabling at the Virtual Services Fair. We drafted a communications plan, and those posts are currently being made by the Secretary General. You can check out the University Affairs Facebook page. A lot of great content, and we'll be tabling at Activities Night. So I've also been working to build up research infrastructure, including setting up a research advisory board, kind of like an IRB, if anyone's familiar with like research. So that's in its early development. Also looking at some professional survey and data storage forms to replace the current like G Suite options. Currently in a comparative review that was launched by the Secretary General, and that final section should be made by the 15th. And we compiled our first ever researcher's guide. Thank you to the SRAC. So that is helping our current researchers. Moving on to libraries, done a lot of work with OER, hired an OER coordinator and a Phys 102 assistant. The assistant has completed their contract and finalized the OER pack that should be uploaded soon if it isn't already. And the coordinator and I drafted a master plan for the year, including a promotional campaign and new funding options. Also, just an update for everyone. Starting winter 2020, all course packs will be offered by the library free of charge in a digital format through MICE courses. So I guess you have that to look forward to. Also, the question of study hubs was brought up. I have some study hub updates. So this should all be on the library website, but there's going to be over 500 study spots open starting today, bookable either for 3-hour time slots or 4-hour time slots. Fortunately, no group study, and it must be booked 1 hour before. If anyone's looking for job opportunities, they're also hiring student ambassadors. And currently developing plans for Redpath Hall Music, Berks, and Mac Campus. So that should be expanded soon. And that is all I have for my report.
All right, thank you very much, VP University Affairs. Are there any questions on the report of the VP University Affairs? If so, indicate so on the speaking list. All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with item 12C, report of the VP Finance. VP Finance, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is just a summary of what happened over the summer, beginning with, hold on, I'm just gonna wait a minute. Okay. Yeah, just beginning with general finances and accounting. So for student fees, the opt-out period for this semester begins September 15th and ends September 29th. The society this year did not change their fees due to COVID, just because we're confident in our ability to provide equivalent services for the coming year, just in a more remote perspective. These fees will be received from McGill in early October, and the budget that was made last year will be revised soon afterwards. The Where's My Money Going document can be found on Minerva on the billing page and will be uploaded to the website just before the opt-out period begins. And it essentially just gives a breakdown of all the fees and what they're used for in both English and French. Please let me know if you don't have access to that document. For the buildings, Shamark already covered this a bit, but yeah, the construction for 3501 Peel is essentially complete, and we're now looking for ways to utilize / rent out this space safely. If anyone is unfamiliar, we are funding the construction on that through lease buyback with RBC for up to $2.5 million. We've currently used 1.4 million with another 600,000 on the way. For the Finance Committee, so the Finance Commissioners this year are Maddie Northfield and Sebastian Duckett, and this Finance Committee is set to begin meeting this month. The member-at-large applications have closed and will be reviewed by me and the Finance Commissioners this week. For accounting, the audit is happening a little bit late this year. This is just because we've given students or student groups a little bit more time to submit their finances. Just because of COVID, it slowed things down a little bit. McGill also gave us an extension or us as in SMU, an extension to submit our audited reports to them. And for the accounting procedures, they've all been streamlined and moved online. So huge shout out to the accounting team for their assistance on that. Moving on to clubs and service finances. So for clubs, club finance coordinator is Godwin Okabal. So the deadline for clubs to return their banking tokens was September 4th. This year it's been a bit trickier to navigate than other years just because many students aren't able to hand them in person. So we were able to provide them with a few alternatives which are listed there. The Club Finance Workshop, which is happening September 19th, 20th, and 26th, has been made and revised, and it is revised to kind of accommodate the uniqueness of fall 2020. And then all the banking token resets will occur the week of September, or beginning the week of September 21st with the support of VP Finance, Club Finance Coordinator, and the 2 Finance Commissioners. So shout out to all of them because that is definitely a bit of a tedious process. So for the services, the initial review of the service budgets have been completed, or a few of the service budgets have been completed. They'll be revisited in October upon receiving the fees from McGill. And then also this year, super excited, credit cards are being issued to all the services for fall semester. They're going to receive training for this during the service summit on September 19th, 20th, and 26th. And these cards will be reconciled monthly and signed off by me and the GM. For funding, moving on, the funding commissioner this year is Ali McGowan. She was also funding commissioner last year, so she has a lot of experience.
We have an extension on the time of the report of the VP Finance, please.
Motion to extend by 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Can you indicate your name? Sorry, I couldn't see it.
Councillor Roy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Roy. So we have a motion to extend by 3 minutes. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion has been granted. VP Finance, you can continue.
Thank you. So for the funding committee, the member-at-large applications have now closed, and I'll be reviewing those applicants with Ali this week to ensure that the committee begins meeting this month. And now that summer is over, members are now able to submit funding applications. And funding applications are brought to every single council for ratification, which is something that Ali and I want to address at a future date, just kind of tossing it in there for a heads up. For the investment portfolio, so despite COVID, SMU's investment portfolio saw a 1.31% increase, which was roughly $48,000 from last year's start of the fiscal year. You'll see the numbers, like a very brief breakdown right there. Over the summer, I also met with Stephen Takacsy, the CEO and president of Leicester Asset Management, to kind of discuss SMU's investment portfolio and what it's going to look like for the coming year. He's confident that our portfolio will remain stable throughout the year while still being SMU appropriate, as in like not invested into any oil companies. I'm sure you all kind of understand that. And then moving on to the health and dental plan. So super exciting. Jamark mentioned it briefly, but SMU's health plan now includes Dialogue, which is a telemedicine service that provides consultation for health concerns, stress and wellness, obtaining new prescriptions, and just finding general health resources. And this is at no additional cost for the 2020-2021 year. This is being funded through the $400,000 rebate that we received from the pandemic. Quick breakdown on that is because people weren't able to use the services of their insurance, we received a rebate from Desjardins to kind of balance that out. We decided to only offer this to members of the health plan just because international students already have a similar service called telehealth through McGill. And Dialogue's inclusion on the health plan will be reviewed at the end of this academic year. And just generally for the health and dental plan, it's continuing as normal for this year. The price per student has stayed the same, which is listed right there.
All right, thank you very much, VP Finance. Moving on to questions in the report of the VP Finance, I will recognize Councillor Dariani.
Hi, my question has to do with something that's on everyone's mind. When is GERTS going to open?
VP Finance?
That is a very good question. So as I'm sure some of you know, Gertz was meant to open this semester. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen just because in discussion with the GM and the operations team, financially, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. And also just for liability purposes, like we want to keep, I guess, smooth things safe as possible. So for fall semester, no. For winter semester, yes, hopefully, yes, but not a hard yes. It's a soft yes for now.
All right, thank you very much, VP Finance. With seeing no other questions on the report of the VP Finance, we'll move on to the report of the VP Student Life. So whenever you're ready, you can present.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'll just get right into it and I'll try to keep it pretty brief. This report covers everything that I've done from training back in May all the way until now. So first, we have activities night. So the first ever virtual version of this event is going to be held tomorrow and Thursday. I've included something new this year, which are webinars that we're holding. They're like 30 minutes to 1 hour for the duration of the event. So one of them is like full. It's the one on part-time employment is like 100 out of 100 have registered, but everything else there's still space. So, spread the word, tell people. Other than that, also with regards to activities nights being held, but it's being developed by Aventus, which is this like third-party company that I used, and I worked with them throughout the summer. As for booths, we have like 320 people who are registered to have booths at activities night, which is great. Moving on to clubs, the workshops, as Jeffrey mentioned in his presentation or his report, will be on September 19th, 20th, and 26th. And then there will be like Zoom makeup sessions on request for people who can't make those dates. Club portal, we are working on that. I think we're going to have to repeat like a lot of the progress that we made from last year because we're like pretty much back at the drawing board. We had picked like a portal company to use from last semester or like from last year, but now that we like look into it a bit more, we're, I guess, reviewing our options again. So it will be like a little longer until we're able to implement a club portal. Other than that, for services, I met with them all in June and then I continued to like help them throughout the summer pretty constantly. I'm developing these space agreements for the University Center. They're not going to be like legally binding, but it's just for groups that have space in the University Center to like formalize and institutionalize the process by which they have those spaces and like the terms by which they have the spaces. So then hopefully like negotiations with groups will be easier in the future. Other than that, if you just scroll down, Parliamentarian Wong. Yeah, I've been working with, okay, that's fine. I'll move into independent student groups. So for McGill Outdoors Club, I've been having meetings with them throughout the summer to talk about their move toward incorporation. Right now they're a club, but they hope to be an ISG soon. And so that is underway. Also, there have been many discussions between various ISGs that have spaces in the building and pay rent in the building and the general manager. So I'm hoping to get more involved in those conversations and like figure out like building space. So for events and like room bookings in the UC, so there's a weekly SMU events committee meeting that's between like a few members, like a few staff members at SMU. And so every week we like review event declarations for groups that submit them. A few weeks ago, I sent everyone, like all staff and all student groups, our new like COVID-19 operations plan and a very, I guess like a truncated version of that is like on the SMU website and it's linked over here. And so you can look at that. It's always subject to change, but there are a number of like really important things to know for this year, how we're going to run activities. Oh,
May I have an extension on the report of the VP Student Life at this time?
Like 2 minutes is okay.
I move to extend the time by 2 minutes.
I second the motion.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the 2-minute extension has been granted.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you want to know more about like how room bookings are gonna work, you can check out the website. For mental health, our 2 meetings have passed of the mental health team. We have another one this week, and we are working on our awareness week and our illness week, mental health awareness week and mental health illness week. Additionally, like a new project we're trying to implement is Wellness World, so that more about that in the future. And if you could scroll down, Parliamentarian Wong, thank you. I did a lot of work for communications this year as well, or like so far, because I since we split up the internal portfolio, I took on communications. I did the first listserv, and so for the next listservs, you'll see the other executives there. Family care, the daycare, the SMU daycare held its first board of directors, or actually we held our first general assembly to ratify new members on the board of directors. So we're all good to go for that. For student services, I worked with Campus Life and Engagement really closely throughout the summer to plan for activities night and also to do webinars for them on the topics of social connections for undergraduates and getting involved at McGill. And finally, other miscellaneous stuff. I sit on the fall reading break committee as the SMU representative in the place of the SMU president last year. So 2 meetings have been held so far on that, and lots of progress has been made toward a 2021 fall reading break. That's it for me. I stand for questions.
All right, thank you very much, VP Student Life. Counselor Dardanani, is this from prior or is this a new question?
No, it was just about GERDs.
Okay. All right, are there any questions on the report of the VP Student Life at this time? All right, here, seeing none, we'll move on to item 12E, the report of the VP External. We'll give two options. Given that, okay, well, actually no, because given that we don't actually have a report, can we have a formal motion to postpone the report of the VP External for this session to next council, please?
So moved.
All right, thank you very much, VP Student Life and Councillor Smith. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion will be report will stand to be postponed. Moving on to item 13A, there is no confidential business this evening. And moving on to 14, adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn at this time?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, a legislative council will come to adjournment at 21:05.
Nice work, everyone, and welcome to council. Bye, folks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night,
everyone.
Good night.